I just wanted to train horses. So probably about 19 by now, I went out on my own and just started fucking putting my sign out, started training horses. I've actually still got the very first sign. It says Clinton Anderson Training Stables, breaking in, re-educating, float loading, which is like loading trouble horses on horse trailers. And I had a couple of T-posts at the end of the dirt road. I put my sign up at the end of a T-intersection, and that was my first advertising. It's funny, I've still got that sign today. My mother's a pack rat, so she saved it. And she gave it to me one time as a present and flew it back over to Australia, and I've actually got it in my house. It's just kind of a funny thing that was my first marketing, was that sign. So back in these days, I'm fucking starving. Like, I'm shoeing horses to make money. I'm starting colts. I'm fixing problem horses. I'm doing whatever I can do to make a living and still enjoying what I'm doing, mind you. I like training horses. Back in those days, I loved the problem horses. That's what really kind of got me off is fucking with the difficult horses. The horses that nobody else could train. And the horses that were dangerous and problematic, they're the ones that got me hot and bothered. Like, I loved those because it was a challenge. And, you know, back in those days, when you're that age, fuck, energy is just dripping out of you. You know, you're just busting with energy every day. So it's not like when you get older, you start thinking about where every step goes. But back in those days, energy wasn't a problem. So I loved the difficult horses. So because I was, you know, I'll just say it, I was very good at rehabilitating those problem horses. So I got a reputation, kind of like Gordon did, is if you've got a bad son bitch or you got a problem horse, fuck it, take it to Clinton. He'll fix it. So I got more and more of these bad horses. And after doing that for about a couple more years, I kind of got sick of it. Because one thing about me, once I can dominate, once I can do something and I've mastered that skill, I get bored with it quickly. I'm like, oh, fuck this. It's fun for me while it's a challenge. Once I can do it, and I know I can do it, and I can do it better than anybody else, I'm like, okay, what's the next challenge? So after a couple of years of doing those type of horses, I kind of got burnt out on it and kind of sick of doing it. And right about that time is when I really wanted to go to America and become a reining horse trainer. Right before I left Australia, I got to train Mindy at the 1997 Reining Futurity. And I think I was third in the final. So I won the first go around on Mindy, and I was third in the finals of the Reining Futurity. About 2 months after I showed at the Futurity, I got in a plane and came to America. And I initially wanted to be a fucking clinician. Not a clinician. I wanted to be a reining horse trainer. So I got a job with a guy called Sam Smith. He's a good buddy of mine. He's still around today. And Sam was in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, near there. And here's the reason I met him is because he came over and judged the 1995 or 96 NRHA Futurity in Australia. They always flew an American judge over every year to judge the Futurity. And I got to meet him and I said, hey, I want to come to America. And Sam said, hey, I've got a job for you. So that was the first guy I ever got a job with in America with him. So that's kind of initially how I got from Australia to America. Is I got that job and flew over there, and it was a bit of a shock to me because I came over in like December, and it came from the hottest part of our summer straight into Ohio winter in December, and that year was especially cold and lots of snow, so it was a bit of a culture shock for me. I'd never seen snow till I came to America, and it was a bit of a culture shock for me, and cold and so forth. I didn't really like it very much, and so I stayed there for about 6 months, liked Sam a lot, but didn't like the weather, just didn't like the situation I was in. There was another girl in the barn that was a big fucking pain in my ass at the time. She didn't like, here's the deal. I was a lot better than her, and she knew it, but she'd been at that barn a lot longer than me, and she wanted to make it real fucking clear that she was going to put me in my place, and she was king shit, and she was the boss dog around there. Which didn't bother me. I didn't give a shit. But she made my life so miserable there, I basically just left, to be perfectly honest. Then that's how I got a job working for Al Dunning. When I figured out that Al lived in Arizona, and Arizona was a lot warmer than Ohio, that's where I wanted to go where the warm weather was. And I'd already met Al because Al had been coming over to Australia doing some clinics prior to this time. And Gordon and I had met him. And Al told Gordon, you know, if Clinton ever wants to come to America, have him give me a call. and I'd love to give him a job. So I kind of already had a bit of a connection there with Al, and so that's when I moved to Arizona and got a job with him, and stayed there about 6 months. In the meantime, this is one of the stupidest things I've done in my life. I met a girl in Ohio and decided to get married, which is fucking stupid. So I got married, and I only stayed with Al about 6 months, and then went back to Australia. I wanted her to meet the family and all that kind of stuff, and then come back to America full time. Looking back on it, I shouldn't have got married. I was 21 at the time. She was 18. We didn't know the difference between love and lust. It was just stupid. That's why I tell people now, I tell boys and girls, if you want to get married, but don't make any life-changing decisions before 30. Don't get married, don't have kids, don't do anything that's going to fuck your life up between 20 and 30, because that's the decade that you change a lot. A 20-year-old boy or girl does not think the same way as a 30-year-old. So every decade you change, but that's the decade that you really make a lot of mental and physical changes. That's important. And if you don't get married and don't have children, sure, you can get divorced, but it's difficult. It's painful. Sure, you could have children, but you just can't give those some bitches back. Once they're yours, they're yours. So at 30, I always tell people, if you still want to do what you do in 20 and you still want to do it when you're 30, go do it. But you have a decade of judgment to know whether you like it, whether you don't like it, etc. So that was the decade I always tell kids now. That's the decade to work your ass off, build your careers, build your skill set, save your money, and really develop that decade to launch you into moving forward in life after that. Anyway, I fucked up. I got married and went back to Australia for about a year. And that was a big change for me, because when I went back to Australia, I didn't want to go back training horses again, because I knew I was only going to be there for a year. I didn't want to have to restart up my business and customers and all that. I didn't really have a very good place to train out of. I had my parents' place, and it had a round pen and a fucking dirt road, and that was about it. So I just didn't feel like I wanted to get back into it again if I only knew I was going to be back not even a year. So this is the first time in my career in my life, that I actually realized me leaving school at 15 was a pretty ballsy thing, and kind of stupid, but ballsy. So I thought, fuck it, I'll just go get a regular job. Now, when I say a regular job, I mean a job doing anything. So I thought, well, what can I do? Well, I can't fucking turn a computer on. I don't know how to fix anything. I'm not a mechanic. I know how to train horses really well. So I said, fuck it, what's a mindless job? I'll go pump gas. I can go get a job at a gas station and pump people's gas, check their air in their tires. So I go to some gas stations around town, and they say to me, well, what's your job experience? And I said, well, I've been a horse trainer for the last 4 years. They looked at me like I had fucking 3 heads, and they wouldn't hire me. And I thought this was odd, because I was willing to work, blah, blah, blah. And after about a week, I can't get a fucking job. And it's the first time in my life that I actually felt depressed because I couldn't get a job. I've never had trouble getting a job, because I've always been a hard worker, and it was easy to get work. If you're a hard worker, most people want to hire you. So in the end, at the end of the week, I walk up to these gas station guys and say, listen, I'll work for a week for free. You don't have to pay me a cent. I'll do everything for free. At the end of the week, if you like what I've done, you can give me a job. If you don't, I'll walk away. You owe me nothing. And I never forget this. People thought that was the weirdest thing in the world, that I was actually willing to give work for a week for free, just to prove to you I'm willing to do the job, work very hard. I've never forgot the look on their face when I'd say that. It's like they thought I was an alien. To me, it was like, this is a no-brainer. I know after a week you're going to hire me, because I'm going to be such good help and I'll work so hard, you won't fire me. But I couldn't get them. It's almost like they thought it was a trick or something that I was trying to do to them. So by the end of the week, I'm fucking depressed. Like, I can't get a job. And I quickly realized that if I didn't get to train horses, I'm kind of a bum. Like, I don't know anything. I didn't graduate high school. I don't have any education behind me, can barely spell my own name. So outside of training horses, I'm pretty much fucking useless. So I walked into a Sizzler restaurant, Rockhampton, Queensland. I don't know if it's still there. And I walked up to the manager and shook his hand, and I said, my name's Clinton Anderson. I want a job. I'll scrub the toilets with a toothbrush. I'll take the trash out. I'll bust tables. I'll do whatever the fuck it takes. But I need a job, and I'll work for free for a week to do it. That manager looked me right in the eye, and he said, you don't need to work for free. I'm going to hire you right now. And that night, I just started bussing tables. So I went to bussing tables, basically. Cleaning up trash, cleaning the toilets, any shitty job he could give me, I fucking did it. And not only did it, but I had a great attitude about it because I wanted to eat. I'm broke, remember. I need money. Well, over the course of the next 2 or 3 months of me bussing tables, all these old customers of mine would see me in there, and they'd say, hey, Clinton, what are you doing? Oh, just come back for a few months. I'm going to go back to America. Oh, I've got this cult to start. Will you do me a favor and start this cult? And I'd feel bad for him and say, oh, okay, bring him over. So I started training one colt, and 3 weeks later, I got 4 colts. And within 6 weeks, I got fucking 10 horses in training, and I'm back to training horses again. So, you know, initially I was bussing tables, and within about 3 months, I'm back to being a horse trainer again. Did that for about not quite a year. And then I came back to America after that. And, but that was the first time I realized that leaving school at such a young age was a very ballsy move, because if the horse training thing didn't work out for me, I didn't have a plan B. So I wouldn't encourage a kid to do what I did back then. I'd at least encourage them to finish high school, that's for sure. Now you might say, well, Clinton, are you pro-college? And the answer is no, because I think a lot of college is just full of shit, just to be perfectly honest. You know, there are certain industries, engineer, doctor, lawyer, nurse, there's certain industries where you need that education to help you get that job or do that job. But I also think there's a lot of courses in college that is pure bullshit. You know, I've never hired anybody because they went to college. I hired them on their skill set. If they could do the job, they got hired. So I think college personally is a little overrated. I don't think training's overrated, and I don't think experience is overrated and learning skills. But you can get a lot of that on the job. You can get a lot of that in the real world if you get apprenticeships in building industries, etc. Now, there are some jobs you have to go to college for. I get that. I'm just saying that I'm not pro-university or pro-college as much as a lot of the culture is. I think it's I think it's a big money-making industry. Because when I ask a lot of people what they went to college for, 10 years later, they don't even do anything in remotely close to what they went to college for. As a general rule, not everybody, of course, but as a general rule. So it was kind of risky what I did. It paid off. But it was pretty risky at the time, and that was the first time that it really sunk in my mind that without being able to train a horse, I really didn't have a skill set. So it was a bit of an eye-opener. So basically, I flew back to America, and I had to get a job.
Like what you see? Then get the app, join the club, and watch it all. Anytime, anywhere. On any device. Experience the mobile method today.